I haven't really sat down and stared at this and really soaked back in what this whole experience was like running and completing a Spartan Ultra. Welcome to Endurance Awakened. My name is Jeff. I'm a trainer. I'm a Spartan racer. I love the endurance world and helping people just like you work on their physical and mental endurance to become the best versions of themselves. And this was something really special to me. I had never done anything like this before. And in this video, I want to share with you a little bit about my experience and, most importantly, 5 very important things that anyone who wants to do an ultra race like this, whether you're over 50 like myself, or even in your 20s, 30s, or 40s, these are all very important things I'm going to share with you. And if you stick around until the end, I'm going to give you a few resources that you can go ahead and take into your life and into your training as well, to become the best version of yourselves and really push yourself. And that's ultimately, what, for me, the overall experience was a learning experience, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, and the ability to really endure hard things. And when you look at the definition of endurance, it's the ability to withstand and sustain difficult situations or events without giving way. And I think that's the biggest piece and the biggest takeaway to pretty much everything I share on this channel is really to keep going and to not give in no matter how difficult it gets. So let's jump into the 5 most important things to do and to know about when you're getting into ultra racing. And I'll tie it into what my experience was like in my ultra race that I just completed about a week ago. So the first thing, obviously, is training. I mean, this is where everything comes down to, is the training that we put in. What does that look like? How often is it? Now, I come from a strength first background. So everything that's regarding the training as far as running is going to be based on the backbone and the shoulders of strength, right? That's getting in the gym, hitting the weights, hitting the kettlebells, functional movement, resistance training, that kind of stuff. We're going to add the running on top of it. Now, as far as how much you should do, you got to log the miles. So my kind of rule of thumb is whatever your distance of your race is going to be, compile that over the course of the week. So in this case, in my ultra, I ended up running almost 33 miles. It was a 31 mile, 50K, 60 obstacle race. I had a few penalty loops. So my race was actually a bit longer. So I would recommend putting your training together in a way that allows you to get those 30 miles in over the course of the week and building up to that. I will share with you at the end how to do that and what that looks like. So as far as the time and distance, it's all going to be individual, right? It's all going to be individual. It's going to be to where you live, especially, what's the weather like? Obviously, we can push through some of the colder conditions like it's starting to get here the beginning of November in Colorado. But we just, we got to be able to understand what the individual needs are in order to put a training plan together, which leads me to number 2. And that is gear. What should you be wearing? Now, me personally, I'm a Hoka fan. I'm not sponsored. I have no affiliation with them. I just love their shoes. I've tried them. I had plantar fasciitis a number of years ago. And when I switched over to Hoka's and all of the PT and everything that I was going into dealing with an injury, which I will have another video about that, and how to prevent injuries, especially the plantar fasciitis. That was a killer, by the way. However, we're able to deal with it. Now, the Hokas, I use the Speedgoat 5s. These are trail running shoes. They're great for Spartan races. They're great for trail races. You might want to check them out. I'll put a link down in the description if you want to check those out. And again, I am not getting paid for any of that. That's all you. So shoes, of course, are super important when it comes to gear, but it's also really important to think about all of your gear from your feet all the way up to your head, right? And it's really going to depend on your weather conditions. It's also going to depend on the distance of how far you're going to be running, how far you're going to be training. And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail in another video. All right, fueling during these races requires a constant supply of carbohydrates. Now, it's a very delicate balance on how these carbohydrates and how this fueling reacts with your gut. Now, a lot of folks will experience GI issues if goos and gels and powders and liquids are overdone and there's not a great mix with some solid foods. So it's really important to make sure that the carbohydrate intake is within the parameters that you've set or that have been set for you by a coach, and I can help you with that as well, to sustain whatever length of period of time of exercise, race, training session that you're looking to do. I keep mentioning all these other videos. It means I'm going to have to put together more videos for you guys to be able to help you get the results that you're looking for, whether it's an ultra marathon or simply in your endurance health and your overall fitness. Okay, now we can move on from gear. Nutrition, super big. Number 3, on and off the course. So what are you doing as far as your nutrition at home? What are you eating? Are you meal prepping? I was not great in meal prepping this time. However, I was very good at loading up on carbohydrates up until the race. Now, this can also be a bad thing if our level of training is not up to where it needs to burn those carbohydrates and allow our bodies to adjust to being able to absorb those carbohydrates, especially over longer periods of time. Now, the nutrition on the course, now for me, this ultra took me longer than I was hoping to. I was hoping to get it done somewhere between 8 and 10 hours. And again, this was my first one, so I wasn't sure what to expect. It took me a little bit over 11 hours. Now, during that time, of course, there's only so much that you can do as far as what we're going to get into in number 4. But as far as nutrition, your GI tract, your stomach, your intestines, your body, everything goes through these feelings of being hungry one minute and not hungry, and what you're doing as far as you're on the course or during your longer training runs as far as hydration, fueling, and your electrolytes. This brings me to number 4 and 5, which is fueling and hydration, which ties directly into number 3, which is nutrition. So think about these as probably like a subcategory underneath the umbrella of nutrition. Because here's the thing, hydration and fueling during regular day-to-day activities comes in the form of food and probably some supplementation that we take. Now, out on longer runs, longer bike rides, anything that's lasting, now in my case, the 11 hours, managing the hydration and the fueling is incredibly important. So let's talk about fueling first. Now, that being said, during my race, we had a transition period. In other words, a place where we stored extra nutrition, extra gels, extra water, food, gear, anything of that nature at about the 18-mile mark in this race. So it was nice to come in. I just needed to have enough fuel on me to get me through the first half of the race, which in this case took me about 4 to 4.5 hours. And when I got to there, I was able to refuel and get what I needed. Now, one of the keys to fueling during these races is to make sure that everything is laid out and super clear, because when you get to that 18, 19, 20-mile mark and you come into that station, you're expecting it, and your brain's not necessarily working the same way that it would be just a few hours prior before you started the race, if you know what I mean. All right, there's a lot that goes into fueling, but just understand there's on the course, off the course. There are gels, there are liquids, there are powders, and there's a lot to stay on top of to make sure you're getting enough carbohydrate consumption to get you through those longer races. Number 5, and I know I said there was only 5, but there is a bonus. We'll call it bonus 5. We'll call it 6. It doesn't matter what we call it. I'm going to give you an extra one as well. But for right now, we want to get into number 5, which is hydration. Now, the first thing that most people think about when we talk about hydration is water. Now, while water is very important in the whole process of hydration, it's also extremely important to have electrolytes. Now, the best form of electrolytes, the best concentration of electrolytes, and keep in mind, there are a lot of electrolyte powders and stuff out there. Most of them are very good. What's very important to look for, of course, is sodium. You want to have a lot of sodium, and really a 2-to-1 ratio of sodium to potassium, or a 3-to-2 ratio of sodium potassium, which is probably more accurate if you were to ask some of the specialists out there, which I am not. I am just going off of everything that I've learned and everything that works for me and a lot of other people that I know that do these endurance races. So take it all with a grain of salt. I totally did not plan that, but hey, whatever. That was actually kind of funny. At least I think so. Hopefully you guys do too. Sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. Okay, those are some of the trace elements that go into your electrolytes, and you want to be consuming those on a regular basis when you are working out and when you are sweating. Now, also keep in mind, this is going to depend on the time of year. You have to be very careful, especially during those colder months like we're getting to here, November, December, January, February, whether you're East Coast, Midwest, out here like me in Colorado, or colder weather climates. It doesn't feel like we're sweating as much, but we are. So make sure during this time of year, especially, keeping up with your electrolyte and your hydration balance. All right, I told you that there was a number 6 or a bonus number 5. This one is recovery. Now, for you guys over the age of 40, especially you guys, recovery is more than just not doing anything and laying on the couch. Now, that's certainly a form of recovery. Don't get me wrong. However, there is a difference between rest and recovery. Okay. And in the recovery bucket, there's also active recovery and non-active recovery. I want to touch on active recovery, which is simply moving, going for a walk, getting on the treadmill, maybe putting a little bit of incline, getting on a recumbent bike, something that is not too much work, something that just keep things moving. The other side of recovery is non-active, which are things like ice baths, saunas, compression therapy, massage, chiropractor, and the list goes on and on. And it's really about self-care, really about self-care. Now, the recovery piece is just as important as the training piece, going all the way back to number 1 and including everything in between, because if we're not recovering, we're more prone to injury. And when injuries happen, it doesn't matter. All of the rest of the stuff that I just talked about, it doesn't even matter if we're hurt and we can't train and we can't compete. So overall, for my Spartan Ultra race, I was pretty good in all 6 of these categories. Now, there's definitely a lot of work to be done. I learned quite a bit about everything in all 6 of these categories. And for me personally, the biggest one is the nutrition. And we're really going to focus on, for this next training block, which is going to be a 90-day training block that takes me into 2025 and the 2025 race season. It's really going to be a big focus on nutrition. That seems to be one of the biggest challenges for all of us. So we're going to be creating more content around nutrition as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, my name is Jeff with Endurance Awakened. I thank you so much for taking all this time to watch this video. Hope you were provided. Hope you received value in this video. I'll see you guys on the next one.